Hi. Hi, everybody. So we're gonna get started. Thank you all for sloshing your way here on a soggy Saturday. We appreciate it. Welcome to Pratt Undergraduate Architecture for our event, Reimagining Urban Futures, Lessons from Ukraine's Resilience. There will be a panel discussion today, followed by Q&A, so audience Q&A. And I also want to mention that we're joined by some students via live link, so they'll be appearing on the screen at various points from the Kharkiv School of Architecture in Ukraine. So welcome, everybody. It's great to see everybody. I would like to introduce and give a special thanks to our Dean, Kilian Riano, who without hesitation agreed to support this event at Pratt. Aside from being dean, Kilian is an active and collective seeking to transform architecture and education. He serves as the vice president for architecture at the Architectural League of New York and has been an initiator and core member of Dark Matter University, a BIPOC-led democratic network committed to creating new forms of knowledge and knowledge production. Kilian has also been on the executive committee and served on the board of the Architectural Lobby, an international organization of architectural workers, planners, and designers advocating for the value of architecture in the general public for architectural work within the discipline. Kilian worked the first few years of the Architecture 2030, a nonprofit that seeks to make the building sector a central solution to the climate crisis, as well as director of the 2030 Palette Project. Kilian also founded and leads his firm design agency, a design studio exploring new forms of cooperative design, processes and engagements through architecture, urbanism, landscapes, and art. Design agency's work has been featured at the Venice Biennale, Queens Museum of Art, Harvard University, the Storefront for Art and Architecture, the New Museum, the Center for Architecture, the Architectural League of New York, as well as other places. Kilian has won numerous awards, which I'm not going to take the time to list now. So with a warm welcome, I want to welcome Dean Kilian.
Hello and good afternoon, everyone. It is my pleasure to welcome you today to Reimagining Urban Futures, Lessons from Ukraine's Resilience. In particular, I want to welcome the partners from Kharkiv School of Architecture, Razum, Help Ukraine, and Parsons. Thank you all for being here. I also want to give a big shout out to the School of Architecture is large. We have 4 departments, but the undergraduate architecture department, where Ostap teaches, really stepped up and made this event happen. So thank you so much to Chairperson Steven Slaughter, to us acting assistant person David Kim. Thank you so much, and okay. About a few months ago, Ostap, visiting associate professor here with us, and Alek Rovensky came to my office to bring this issue up. We had our events series set, but this was so important that we began to talk together about how we can make this happen. This year's theme for our school is cohabitations. And it's because we, across the School of Architecture, we see our students, staff, and faculty working deeply on the design, planning, and management of affordable, equitable housing, structures that serve the public, as well as how to improve public space design and use, all while considering environmental justice and social equity. Cohabitation, after all, is part of what we need, and one of the reasons we're using it for the future pluralistic democratic systems that we're going to need. Today, however, we are here to talk about, learn, and even the word resiliency is such a loaded and open word, right? I mean, I wish that the Ukrainian people didn't have to be resilient, right? Is about when that system, and what I'm beginning to wonder if it's the right to cohabitate with fellow citizens and multiple skills has been violated by the Russian invasion. I'm interested in learning about in this contemporary moment. I think we have some options as a world, right? And one is to really double down, keep working on these systems, structures that would allow us to create that pluralistic democracy, that would allow us to cohabitate. And we are witnessing places where that is getting broken, and where we're having to learn how to build even in the face of that conflict, the real conflict that is upon us. So I'm not going to take too much time, except that I'm hopeful to learn a lot throughout this, to join you and learn from what's happening, as well as in any way that we can contribute to the new potential futures in the Ukraine. Thanks again, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to our school and to learn from the speakers that we're going to have today and from this event. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dean Killian. This event would not be possible without generous funding from Razom for Ukraine. I'd like to... I'd like to introduce and invite Dora Tremyak up to the podium. Dora is a native New Yorker who's been active in the Ukrainian American community in the United States since the 1980s. Dora has been traveling to Ukraine for 25 years and worked for the Independent Soros Foundation in Kiev from 1991 to 92, which was a very pivotal time in Ukraine's history. When she co-founded a media incubator that launched non-governmental news organizations in newly independent Ukraine. She then led a $7 million grant from USAID until 1994 with Internews. Dora has grown businesses through marketing at brands such as McGraw-Hill, Thomson Reuters, Baby Jogger as well. She holds an AB from Princeton University and an MBA from Columbia University. She speaks English, Ukrainian, and Russian. Dora has been involved in the numerous Razom projects and is responsible for the Razom partnership with Hromadske Radio. Welcome, Dora.
Thank you very much. I just want to take a couple minutes to tell you a little bit about Razom and what we're doing now. And really, Razom, which means together in Ukrainian, was founded 10 years ago, coming out of the Revolution of Dignity. We saw some other activities that came out of that in the film, in the excellent film that we just saw previously. Razom today is over 200,000 individual donors who have stepped up mostly over the past 2 years to contribute to the development of a prosperous and sovereign Ukraine. That's been the mission of the organization all these 10 years, and it continues to be the mission. How we do it now has changed. We deliver aid in Ukraine, and we advocate for Ukraine outside of Ukraine. So in the past 2 years, thanks to the immense generosity of supporters, we've been able to deploy over $100 million of aid to combat medics on the front, to over 400 hospitals, and to over 150 non-governmental organizations in Ukraine. So round of applause for those 200,000 people. And here in the United States is what we have the privilege to do together today with the Kharkiv School of Architecture, and that is to amplify voices from Ukraine, to put the talent that's in Ukraine into conversations around the world. We do that by trying to create spaces where people can meet each other and find concrete projects to do together. And I know that many good things will come out of today's conversation. Simultaneously, we have started an advocacy team. We have a full-time advocacy team in Washington, D.C., focused on making sure that U.S. legislators and policymakers understand the importance of continued bipartisan support for Ukraine. So I'll close by asking each of you to do 3 things. First, contribute how you can to the development of a prosperous and sovereign Ukraine. You can do that by making contributions to the Kharkiv School of Architecture today. You can do that by introducing people from the Kharkiv School of Architecture to donors and foundations who understand the importance of education and the built environment for shaping how we work with each other and how we interact. So donate yourself, invite others to donate. And the third thing is, as an American citizen, as a New Yorker, please call your members of Congress every day. And all you need to do is share your view, which I hope you all have. And if you don't, you will by the time you listen. I'm sure you will by the time you listen to some amazing Ukrainians speak. Share your view of the importance of continuing to support Ukraine to defend freedom for all of us and our ability to do what we're doing here today, which is meeting and exchanging ideas. So thank you all for coming today. Please tell all your friends to follow what's happening in Ukraine and to contribute in whatever way that you can. And I'm particularly pleased that Kharkiv, which is a city I've been to several times and I admire, is able to be in my hometown of New York City. And I know that together, we're going to create incredible spaces where people can do a lot more together. Thank you.
Okay, now I'd like to introduce our moderator for the panel discussion today, Robert Mull. Robert Mull is an architect. He's a director of quality and innovation at Publica, which is a London-based urban design and public realm practice that works to make our cities more successful, functional, and beautiful. Since joining Publica in 2016, Robert has been responsible for reviewing all of Publica's projects and ensuring that the practice's work remains at the top of its field. An architect, educator, and urbanist, Robert was educated at the Bartlett and the Architectural Association in London, and was until 2016 the Director of Architecture and the Dean of the Cass Faculty of Art, Architecture and Design in London. He has taught widely in the UK and internationally and held visiting professorships in Vienna, Innsbruck, Umeå, and Izmir. Robert was a founding member of the architecture collective NATO and has worked on urban projects and research in many contexts, including India, China, Cuba, Korea, US, Russia, and Ukraine, and within the refugee crises in Turkey, Greece, and France. Robert is an adjunct professor of architecture at the University of Limerick and teaches at Umeå University. He also leads the Global Free Unit, transnational educational structure with academic research, NGO, and institutional partners focused on live projects within areas of Ukraine in support of Kharkiv School of Architecture. So welcome, Robert.
Thank you. I suppose I'd just like to start by just saying a few words about the school. And I suppose you're wondering why somebody from London is here moderating a conversation on a school in Kharkiv. I just want to say a few words about my sort of attachment and admiration for the school by way of answering that question, but also beginning to then introduce Oleg, Irina, Ryan, and some of the students. I'm here, I suppose, because I was privileged to meet Oleg and witness the birth of the school. And now, since full scale, the second invasion, I have been involved in initiatives to support the school and to strengthen its academic, human, and physical resources, initially focused on this incredibly brave act that the school did days after the invasion, which was to stay in Ukraine and move to Lviv, halting what Oleg describes as the brain drain and starting that process of supporting Ukrainian culture in architecture and urbanism to resist concepts of colonization through reconstruction and other processes. More recently, I have been privileged to be involved in setting up or designing the new master's course with Ryan Locke, who will speak in a few minutes, independent master's course in architecture and urbanism at the school that will focus on recovery and reconstruction and reimagining Ukrainian cities. I suppose for me, why is the school so important? And why is it so important to so many people, and I hope important to you? For me, simply, it is one of the most important schools in the world. It is fiercely independent, ambitious, and one of a small group of architecture schools, an archipelago of free-thinking schools, where I think in a very tangible way one can begin to see the future in terms of ways of working and in ways of addressing pressing global issues. The school has a clear mission and is committed to addressing the mistakes of the past and to the education of a next generation of Ukrainian architects, not just in relation to Ukraine, and I think this is really important, but as a global exemplar. As such, it has a clear relationship to other areas going through war, through conflict, natural disaster, and climate change. But I think ultimately that invention, that vitality, which is the school in Kharkiv, will have an impact on all cities. And as such, I think the school is of importance not only to Ukraine, but to all of us. So I think, if I may, just want to say that the school is burning bright. It's been burning bright for 2 years. Extraordinary energy, extraordinary work coming out of it, and you'll see that. But it's really tough. It's really tough, and it relies to an extraordinary extent on the dedication, compassion, care, and intelligence of very few people. And I think we're here today to help them, to provide solidarity, but also to give practical support. So I'd now like to hand over to 3 of those extraordinary people. First and foremost, of course, Oleg Drozdov, who was the co-founder of the school and president of the school. He is the founder of the wonderful architecture practice, Drozdov and Partners, and a co-founder of the sort of doppelganger of the school, or the partner of the school in many ways, Roskvit, the Urban Coalition for Ukraine. Oleg will then hand over to Irina Matsevko, who is the Deputy Vice Chancellor of the school. She is a historian who was taught at the University of Lviv and was formerly Deputy Director and Head of the Public History Programs at the Center for Urban History in Lviv. And then she will hand over to Ryan Locke. Ryan is an American. He's the MA Program Director, so he's been making this new program happen. Ryan joined the school from KTH Stockholm, where he was co-founder and co-director of the International Master for Urbanism Studies program. And Ryan is now full-time relocated to Lviv. And wonderfully, Ryan will hand over for 6 people, important people, to introduce themselves to you. We have 6 current students from Lviv, from Kharkiv via Lviv, joining us online. And one of those students will just talk for a few minutes about what it is that they see as being important from the situation of a student. Then, when we move to the panel discussion, all 6 of the students will also become part of the panel behind us as part of that conversation. And Kharkiv students are very, very sharp, very, very tough, very scary at times. So I really look forward to them taking part. So if I may now, I would like to hand over to Oleg.
Thank you so much, Robert, for introduction. I want bring a big thanks Pratt Institute for having us, and especially the Equal. And also thank you for coming. It's so nice to see so much friends and colleagues in this room. I hope our relation will be improved in the future. And I will try to tell together with Irina and Ryan, quite a long story of school development. Tell it in very short. Is Kharkiv School and why is architecture? Because of host of new architectural education has walking through Ukraine a lot of time and settled in Kharkiv in 2017 and in very special place. First of all, it's one of the capital of modernity. It's like a place there. Avant-garde, real avant-garde movement was like a satellite for decades. And also it's very special city which become something like a realized new utopia of generosity and huge mass housing and improvement of quality of production during very short time. And you could see on this picture, south of Kyiv, one of the district of Kharkiv, which inhabits around 500,000 of the people. And also it's expressed a certain conditions of architectural discipline in time of collapse of Soviet Union. And this was like some moment there, like a broken relation between a generation. It was like erosion of profession. In many ways, our generation started from scratch. And also in some moment, then already liberal economy took like a serious place and maybe shape like a new relation between the people in inside profession. Yeah, it's like becoming a critical problem. What is like a mission of architectural discipline? And you could see us a panorama of Kyiv, there very much express what happened. It's erosion of public realm. It's a cacophony of speculative, ambitious, but it's not about architectural quality. That's why, yeah, you could see about like numbers, how much love and experience, like a proportion between one architects with a license for 1,000 people, and you could see there is European countries and place of Ukraine. And yeah, during the several years, this like a number a little bit improved, but unfortunately during the invasion, I could say this proportion, yeah, like looks now like a quite similarity. And for sure, a kick-off of founding a school, it was a revolution dignity. And this was moment then all country becoming startup. That's why we also feel responsible to start new institution that could be responsible for future Ukrainian built environment. And it's thankful by a group of people who represented civic society and mostly all investors to the school. It was like a people who already formed as volunteers who help independent military unit to resist in a battlefield before, and it is like becoming like more easily, and they have like some kind of resources reinvest money to the school. And this was like an enormous moment of community building in around school. And I could see several people in this hall who was like took a place in this like opening day, and we started from quite a big vibration and rich public program, and school performed mostly as a NGO, as some kind of informal institution, and partly, yeah, it could be like this. Oh, yeah. It's also, yeah, we start to re-envision a lot of things, including, I don't know, our relation our bodies and space. And this it was like a revision of basics of architectural education. We decide that's like a most important in era of artificial intelligence to change practically approach of profession and social moderation and becoming like maybe a key activity of architect and integration of like a different interest, vision, and profession. And the rest of slides is also video. That's why we're trying to be as deep as possible to the our ground, soil, communities, and through dirty hands experience life and space around us. We strongly believe that the future of Ukrainian architecture is strong correlation between industries and social networking. We also see like a school mission as a big public institution which spread knowledges and also form communities around. We face already a process of institutional building, public institutional building. That's why it's so important to thinking towards critical hybridization of different functions for public sector. It's one of the focus of the school. Unfortunately, in many scenography of places where our school acted, becoming like a battlefield in nowadays. And this means that we could return with the new ideas from the same places. And many of them, you could see one of the street of Severodonetsk. But also we already realized that we are shrinking society and our cities could be developed in a way that we could bring back nature to the city and find like a new solution for increased quality and be more resilient to the climate change, which is very crucial in Ukrainian reality. And also we want to focus on a phenomena of the home, which is like a base for dignity. It's one of the, it's also a movie, very funny one. Yeah, I cannot, and shelter and dignity in wartime and after the war, it's one of the most important trigger which could be shape our urbanity, our lives, our families, our future. And I'm giving for Irina Matsevka, who is
So the Russian full-scale invasion became a catastrophe for Ukraine. It also has changed the life of the Kharkiv School of Architecture. Kharkiv is located in 30 kilometers from Russian border. So the city was the first to be hit by the war. We wouldn't believe that war started, but we were preparing. Before the full-scale invasion for students with military, who explained them what war is. We had meeting with psychologists who prepared them how to cope with stress and also first aid training. A week before the full-scale invasion, we sent our students to their family. From the very beginning, from the first days of full-scale invasions, we got enormous moral support from international architectural community and offering for our students to continue their study abroad. Our teachers got a job offer from our friends foreign architectural offices. And witnessing the massive escape of people from Ukraine and the way in which Ukrainian intellectual resources were brain drained. In the third week of the war, we made a statement that the Kharkiv School of Architecture remain in Ukraine, and we feel our responsibility to train a future generation of architects who will rebuild Ukrainian city. The war take away a lot from us. The war took away our beautiful building. A lot of our students and teachers were forced to flee abroad. We choose Lviv, the city which is located more than 1,000 kilometers from war zone, very close to Polish border. In the third week of the full-scale invasion, we already resumed our online classes. In May, we got together our students in Lviv, and in July, we conducted the enrollment campaign. We managed to find premises for the school. The Lviv Academy of Art, this is the state university, they host us, and they gave us the abandoned premises. So we renovate it. We brought all equipment and workshops from Kharkiv, and in September 2022, we opened new spaces fully adopted for running architecture school. In Lviv, we resumed our BA program according to urgent needs and focusing on post-war recovery. A few focuses we introduced to our program. First, this is housing, the biggest need for Ukraine after the war. The second one is heritage, the massive destruction of buildings in Ukrainian city. Arise a question of destruction of collective memory, which in turns encourage reflection on heritage, memory, and trauma. And the third focus is typology and climate. The war has already led an enormous environmental catastrophe in Ukraine, which is overlapped with global challenges of climate change. Our main goal is to prevent brain drain from Ukraine by offering high standards of education for our students, also for providing teachers with a creative space to implement their ambitions. This enables us to gather young, talented students in the school. Many of them had possibility to study abroad, but they have chosen our school. We invite well-educated teachers who see it as their mission to pass on their experience and their knowledge and train the young generation of architects who will deal with post-war recovery. As an academic institution, we see our responsibility in introducing the discussion, deep discussion, and in Ukrainian society and introducing changes. Our mission is to raise its awareness about the new role of architects as a mediator of the social processes. We see our mission in leading the discussion about the need of reform of architectural education in Ukraine. And the most important, we see our mission in developing new architecture culture and promote high quality human-centered architecture. In Lviv, the school has become a platform for discussing the key architectural issue related to challenges of the war. The war has become a turning point for the Kharkiv School of Architecture. During these 2 years of war, our work has shown the institutional stability, our ability to think quickly, to take efficient decisions and to function properly in extreme circumstances. The war has made us braver and more confident in our mission to shape the young generation of architects who will change our cities. And at the same time, the war has challenged us with enormous financial issues. As we are a private institution, we are not supported by the state. But we didn't stop. We go on, and we are working on a new MA program, which will also cover the needs of contemporary Ukrainian society.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ryan Locke. I'm the program director for the upcoming Masters of Arts in Architecture and Urbanism at the Kharkiv School of Architecture. I'm very honored to be here today. I just want to start with, there's so many people that we could thank, but a few that I want to thank directly. The first is Razum. Without you, this event wouldn't be happening and we wouldn't be here today. So thank you. Next is Robert Moll, who has just done so much with us and has been a great collaborator and friend to me over the last months as I've gotten to know the school. And also to Alec Rovensky, who I've come to know over countless hours in time of Zoom calls from far away. One of which was, I think it was 5 a.m. for you, and you were in Costa Rica. So real dedication. Thank you. So first, a few words about myself. Some of this has already been said, but what is a guy from Michigan doing with this unique architectural school located in Ukraine? I spent the last 10 years of life in Stockholm, where I was developing a master's program. And I think that one of the reasons that Oleg ended up bringing me here is that I had developed and directed a program in Stockholm on urbanism studies. So why would I one day pack up my bags and move to Ukraine during a war? That was a question that I got from a lot of family and friends. Why leave one of the cities with the highest quality of life on the planet, Stockholm? And the short answer to that is that I believe in the mission and the ambition of the Kharkiv School. I could say a lot more about that, but that was my starting point. So when I was still in Stockholm, I came into contact with Oleg Drozdov through mutual colleagues in the Roskvit Network, which is the Urban Coalition for Ukraine, and some of those persons are here today that I see. Oleg explained to me one of the most important proposals that I've ever heard, which was an invitation to come to Ukraine and help start a new master's program aimed at training a future generation of architects and urbanists towards the project of urban recovery in Ukraine. I couldn't say no. Oleg invited me to visit the school in the current displaced location in Lviv. And I first traveled there over a year ago to meet the school and just get a sense of if I could imagine living there. And the short answer is yes, because I live there now. So in July of last year, I packed up my bags, left Stockholm with the luggage of 2 grown men on my back, and made a one-way trip to Lviv, not fully knowing what to expect. And I can tell you that so far, there's nothing that I would change about that choice. Many friends and family who heard that I was going to Ukraine didn't understand that Lviv is considered to be in the safer part of the country. This is generally true when contrasted with cities such as Kharkiv or Dnipro. But in the days before I was to leave Stockholm, the worst attack to date took place in Lviv. And friends and family once again questioned my choice with their legitimate concerns, but I explained to them my reasons. So even in Lviv, the conditions are challenging for the students and staff. And I just find that the school is an exemplary of the bravery and resilience that has been on display over the last 2+ years. I think I'm missing a slide. Lviv is a safe city until it's not. That's what I've learned from being there. And just in the days since we've left Ukraine, a lot of you know and have heard that Russia launched 2 massive air attacks against Ukraine in what was the largest series of combined drone and missile strikes targeting Ukrainian energy infrastructure since the start of the full-scale invasion. So this war is not isolated to any line, and being in Lviv doesn't necessarily mean that it's a safe situation. So I want to turn now to the master's program, which we have been working on together with our international friends and partners, including Robert Moll. This program is located at the nexus of architecture, urban design, and urban planning, with a focus on human scale environments and public space, and with special attention to issues of rethinking the urban redevelopment and rebuilding of Ukrainian settlements, towns, and cities. Ukraine needs more qualified professionals to take the lead on these processes and projects, not only at the design level, but also at the policy and leadership levels. So it is the goal of this program to train architect urbanists who are future leaders and agents of change, ready to work with international partners and organizations and ready to be a part of making the recovery Ukrainian-led. We want our students to have a voice in the debate and dialogue about the future shape of their country. And this program will be unique in the sense that it's Ukraine's first independent master's course in architecture focused on developing the human, professional, and practical skills needed to work towards reconstruction. As many of you know, Kharkiv is a city under constant attack, and it's a city that exemplifies many of the realities and challenges facing Ukrainian cities all over the country. And in the future, it will be a city that is simultaneously dealing with development and urban decline resulting from depopulation caused by the war. Oleg has shared with me the need for the school to be standing in solidarity with and to be part of the resilience of Kharkiv and to keep dreaming, to keep understanding, and to engage in documenting, analyzing, and designing for the future, especially during a time of war. So as a way of working for the home school or for the home city of this school, the decision has been taken that we will focus the MA studios and curriculum on the city of Kharkiv as the main case. We believe that it's important that each project and all of the work that we're undertaking with students will be useful for communities. And we really believe in a strong need for community engagement and want our students to learn how to be involved in communities through participation processes. And I mean, the condition of Kharkiv, I think many of you are familiar with, but Oleg one day took out some of his own photos that he had taken in 2022 and as a way of explaining that to me. So this winter, together with Robert Moll, we held the Building Back Better workshop, which was generously supported by the Norwegian Refugee Council. This consisted of a group of 100 professionals, students, educators, and researchers from Ukraine, Sweden, Ireland, Poland, and the UK, who gathered in Lviv and Warsaw with a unified objective to conduct research and develop sustainable solutions to address Ukraine's pressing recovery needs. We focused on the city of Dnipro. But most importantly, for me, the workshop gave us a chance to test the ambitions of the future master's program. And it gave us the chance to see what this course can become, what's possible. But it also reminded us that we need support to carry out these activities. I don't think videos are playing. So yeah, we can try. We have a quick, just 20-second clip from that workshop. And No, there was never sound, so that's good. So that was my first test and experience with students who, some of them who applied will actually be our future MA students. Students in Ukraine today face what no other students in Europe or in the US face, working in a displaced location with all sorts of challenges, threats, and tragedies around them, and they face it with bravery. So I want to read some excerpts from the motivation letters that we've received from our future students, because their voice is essential in this. And their letters were so inspiring to me to read. This is Daria from Kharkiv. She says, I currently live and study in Kharkiv. After the full-scale invasion, I stayed in Ukraine because I feel needed here. My goal is to use and improve my professional knowledge for the future of our country. I see with my own eyes how important it is to have clear strategies to support and restore our cities. Participation with the school would be a great opportunity for me to deepen my knowledge of urbanism, to gain experience with a new professional community, and of course, to offer my own vision of how to solve the problem. This is Anton from Mariupol. Mariupol is my hometown that was destroyed by Russian war aggression, but one thing Russia couldn't take away is my faith in bringing it back. When the deoccupation happens, our mission will be to create a better place for our family and friends to come together again. This is Maria from Kharkiv. I am extremely interested in the opportunity to collaborate with an international community of students and educators on ideas for the restoration of Ukrainian cities. The theme of reconstruction is especially significant to me, as I, along with my parents, had to rebuild our home near Kharkiv after the occupation, making it a deeply personal matter. I am interested in understanding how communities and their needs have changed after the full-scale invasion, and I wish to develop my knowledge and skills with the goal of benefiting post-war Ukraine. And this is Veronica from Kharkiv. When we met all of these students in the winter workshop that I described, Veronica, my heart aches to help rebuild our cities after the ordeal of Russian aggression. Forgive the expression, but for me, it is not just restoring infrastructure. It is restoring a part of our soul, restoring our identity in the places we call home. I want to achieve high professional development and work together with leading teams for the common goal of improving infrastructure and rebuilding Ukrainian cities that have been destroyed by Russian aggression. I want to become a true professional in my field, to find and implement creative ideas aimed at improving the living standards of the population and solving problems. I'm ready to learn and study with you and to give my heart and experience to restore the beauty of our cities, to work on rebuilding the future for Ukraine. So that is really what it's all about. And in order to make that happen, we're here doing many things, part of which is to make new friends and to extend our network, but it's no secret that we're also here asking for your support so that we can make this happen. The average cost of tuition in the US, I know it is somewhere between $20,000 and $50,000 a year, depending on what school we're talking about. But the MA at the Kharkiv School of Architecture will cost approximately $10,000 a year for a student. So an entire student's master's education would be covered by $20,000. What we aim to do with this new master program is to address exactly what one student in her application called the most important issue of recent years: how architects can rebuild Ukraine properly and effectively. So we are excited to launch this new program, but we need your help and support. I hope that you will consider supporting these talented and determined Ukrainian architecture students so that they can have the chance to develop their professional careers and ambitions toward the future project of the recovery of their country. And I'm also supposed to point out that we all have donation cards here. And if you can just take a look at the front and the back of that and see if there's any contribution that you can make. And at this point, I'm going to turn the mic over to Ukraine. We have one of our students, Volodymyr Petrik, here. He's going to deliver a statement, and then that will be the conclusion of the first part of this program. So thank you.
Hi, everyone. I hope you hear me well. Yeah, it's Ukraine speaking and some student perspective. Yeah, you hear me, yeah?
We hear you.
Yeah, perfect. So my name is Volodymyr. I'm from Ternopil, and I'm currently in my second year of bachelor's degree at Kharkiv School of Architecture. The decision to enter Kharkiv School of Architecture was, to be honest, an easy one, but because of different reasons, before I started studying in our school, I studied architecture at another university in Kyiv. But when the full-scale invasion started, I realized that if I want to do something meaningful and something that matters, I need to find a new institution or a place that could prepare me for all the challenges, not only in the difficult context of Ukraine and the whole world, but a place that can help me develop critical thinking and different way on looking on things. And I got more than I could have ever hoped for in terms of education. But most importantly for me, I have found friends, a group of incredible and wise people who are trying to understand the physical world we live in, who want to create not just beautiful and inclusive spaces for everyone, but to be a socially responsible force that can help local communities implement quality and sensitive spatial changes, and of course, to develop an intellectual community. All the discussions we have, all the support we provide to one another during our long 8-hour studio sessions help a lot. And I also want to thank you for listening to all the voices we are giving you today. And I hope that we'll be able to create a new generation of Ukrainian architects that can help Ukraine. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Vladimir. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Irena. Thank you, Oleg. We're now moving to a panel discussion. And we had some conversations about what it is that we wanted to talk about. And we, in the end, arrived at a very, very simple question, which was really, what is the potential role, the responsibilities, the future of the school in Kharkiv, and how can we help them? So in a very simple way, we've asked our extraordinary panelists to answer that question or to begin to address it. When moving closer to that question, clearly it's a sort of window into extraordinary complexity. But we started really talking about just a couple of simple categories in which the school operates that we felt could form the basis of our common ground, what one might in a sense call soft and hard forms of recovery and reconstruction. Soft is about education, capacity building. It's about dreaming, myth-making, governance. It's also about the articulation and empowering of individual, local, and national identity. Also as a way of ensuring culturally specific forms of recovery, resisting that brain drain, and avoiding being bullied by others in terms of recovery. Hard is about infrastructure, materiality, standards, logistics, and in architecture and urbanism, this means thinking about how to make the reconstruction of Ukraine a global exemplar, sustainable cities, ecology, biodiversity, circular economies, participatory and co-design, prefabrication, mass customization, child-friendly cities, equality, social justice, and much more. The school has established itself in an extraordinary way. So today we're here to have that conversation. Oleg and Irena and Ryan will be part of that panel. And we've asked each panelist to make a short trigger paper, just a short set of statements in relation to that big question. And we also have students from Lviv here. And what I'd like to do now is invite each of the panelists up onto the stage to seat. I'll give a very brief introduction to each of them as they come up to the front, and then we'll ask them to give that trigger statement. And we'll also ask the students on the screen to introduce themselves. We have an extraordinary panel. If I were to read through their biographies, we'd be here for an hour and a half. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to give a very, very brief couple of lines about each person. But what I've asked them to do before they give their trigger statement is to say specifically what their relationship is to the school, what their relationship is to Ukraine, and why they feel motivated to be here. So the first of our panelists is Sasha. Sasha, are you here? You can come up and be the first to sit in the row. Sasha is an adjunct lecturer, Spitzer School of Architecture at the City College of New York, visiting assistant professor here at the Pratt Institute. And Sasha is intriguingly currently co-curating an exhibition called Constructing Hope Ukraine that will open in May 2024 at the Center for Architecture here in New York. The second panelist is Brent Ryan. Brent is a vice provost and professor of urban design and public policy at MIT, where his research focuses on the aesthetics and policies of contemporary urban design, particularly with respect to current and pressing issues of deindustrialization and climate change. Brent. Third is Vladimir Belagogovsky, principal, Intercontinental Curatorial Project, which is a non-profit that focuses on curating and designing architectural exhibitions. He has authored 20 books. He has interviewed more than 500 leading architects. I'm not sure that's something to celebrate, but there we are, including 21 Pritzker Prize winners, and lectured at universities and museums in more than 30 countries. Thank you. Fourth, Yves Blau, director of the Davis Center for Russian and Eurasian Studies, co-director, Harvard Mellon Urban Initiative, adjunct professor, Harvard GS. Her research and teachings explore cities and urban regions in the post-socialist world with a particular focus on Eastern and Central Europe. The underlying concern is the complex dynamics of urban transformation in the context of rapidly changing socio-political, environmental, and technological conditions. And finally, Richard Plunce. Richard is a professor emeritus of architecture, planning, and preservation at Columbia, where he has served as chair of the Division of Architecture and director of the post-professional urban design program. He was also an Earth Institute professor and founding director of the Earth Institute Urban Design Lab. He is known for a wide range of urban research, development, and design projects, both nationally and internationally, with a particular expertise in urban infrastructure and housing fabric. Richard. Now I need Ryan to help me again with this, Ryan, because you're going to get each of the students to introduce themselves, if you will.
Yeah, I think that they know what to do since we've been through this in Lviv, and I'm so happy to see all of you here. It is, I think, around 9:30 p.m. in Lviv on a Saturday night. So thank you all for being here. And let's start with an introduction from Anastasia.
Hi, my name is Anastasia. I am originally from Odessa. I am a third-year student here in Kharkiv School of Architecture. And Ryan asked us to say something about our point of interest, and but I'm not quite sure what should I say now. But for now, I'm gonna say that it's architectural theory and architectural heritage. So yeah, that's it.
I'll be next. Hi everyone. My name is Matvey. I'm initially from Uzhhorod, the west of Ukraine, and my particular interests as of now in architecture are biophilic architecture and restoring the housing that was destroyed in this war. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sophia. I'm from third year of baccalaureate degree, and originally I'm from Zaporizhia, and interested in reconstruction and product design. Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Maria. My hometown is Chernihiv. I'm also in third year of my study. In my study, I like this context and.
Sorry, I have a bad internet. I'm next. My name is Mira. I'm on my second course, and I'm originally from Dnipro city, and I'm particularly interested in experimental, organic, and upcycling architecture.
Hi, and I'm the last. My name is Daria. I'm on my second year. My hometown is Kharkiv, and something about myself. Since my childhood, I had a phrase on my head, and it goes like this. I don't want to be just a person who performs my duties well. I want to be the one who helps the world to become a better place. So I strongly believe that architecture can bring a lot of changes in the future, and that's why I'm here.
Thank you for being here. And it's lovely to see some of you again who were in Warsaw with us. It's fantastic you can take part. Thank you. If we could we call Oleg and Irena and Ryan up to the platform? And what we're going to do now is we'll just go through the trigger papers without asking questions between them. And the intention then really is that the panel asks each other questions. Clarifications in terms of what they've been saying, but it's also the first opportunity we have to ask questions of Irina and Oleg and Ryan. And then we'll break out to give you lots of time to ask questions and make statements. So if we may, we would like to start with Sasha.
Me now? Okay. Again, my name is Sasha Topolnitska, and I'm an adjunct professor at City College, Spritzer School. As mentioned before, my relationship to Kharkiv School, I am co-curating an exhibition that is opening on May 2nd, as mentioned before, at Center for Architecture, on the work of various collaborative initiatives, grassroots specifically, that are working on reconstruction efforts in Ukraine. And Kharkiv School and their still partners is one of the few projects that we're exhibiting. Yeah, that's my relationship here. Should I go into the statement?
Please, yes.
Again, my experience of the reconstruction and the state of architecture practice in Ukraine is based mostly on the work of the self-organized grassroots initiatives. I have been studying these initiatives for that upcoming exhibition. Many of these groups, which are mostly volunteer-based, have formed collaborative initiatives or commons as a means of resistance and action. What's remarkable is that many of these initiatives are architecture background and working on a lot of different types of projects of reconstruction, from providing housing for internally displaced to bringing windows to replace in buildings because of the blown up windows during the attacks, and many more. But I think the most interesting that a lot of these commons are also come from non-architecture background. but they are actively use architecture strategies and practices to respond to immediate and long-term wartime reconstruction efforts. Their work transcends professional silos and expands on discourse around the role of architect beyond disciplinary boundaries. I'm not really much going to answer the question that was asked from me. Instead, I'm just going to ask more questions. I guess that raises a question about the new patterns, structures, and relationship in the architecture agency during Reconstruction, and what role architects will have, considering that many non-architectural individuals also want to be and probably should be a part of Reconstruction as well. Yeah.
Thank you. Brent.
Thanks for the invitation to be here today. And very briefly, my relationship to Kharkiv is, well, really that I missed a train there once. And it was my students' fault, really. But we went to Dnipro instead during our last visit to Ukraine. But since 2014, I've been working with Ukraine and more importantly with Ukrainians at MIT through the Fulbright program and through at least once, and I know again in the future, bringing MIT students to Ukraine to work there and to participate in helping Ukrainian cities that needed a lot of help before the war and will need obviously that much more help afterward. I've been especially privileged to collaborate with Katerina Lopatyak, who's in the audience, who's at MIT now. So thanks for coming today, Kate. And my trigger statement is very briefly the following. I see three critical roles for the school in post-conflict Ukraine. First, I think we need to remember that Ukraine has many very small and underserved cities in addition to large ones, many of them in a post-industrial state. And prior to the war, these cities were in a state of physical decline. They needed a lot of attention before 2022, and they'll need it even more post-conflict. So I would urge the school not to forget these small post-industrial cities in Ukraine. Second, I think maybe the most difficult challenge for the school and maybe one of the most difficult challenges for Ukraine is for the school to interrogate existing political economies of development in Ukraine. Prior to 2022, again, in my experience, existing development processes, and I saw this also in the exhibit outside, they were damaging historic city centers and constructing poorly designed, overly dense urbanizations through unregulated or certainly underregulated private development. So this is a politically contentious and difficult task ahead, but critical. Last, and I think this is something that the school has already done. We are the result of that, and I really look forward to further action in this regard, is international collaboration with institutions like Pratt and others with an interest in rebuilding Ukraine. There are so many ways in which this can occur, and we have the students here with us tonight. We can promote faculty collaborations with faculty in Ukraine. We can invite experts for residencies in Kharkiv. We can host student workshops, of course, and I've found, and I think Kate is finding this semester, that MIT students are so eager to go to Ukraine and to help. There's an enormous amount of international goodwill toward Ukraine that's ready to help, and the school can play a role in catalyzing that goodwill, and I look forward to participating in that. Thank you.
Thank you, Brent. Vladimir.
Yes, hello. Well, thank you so much for inviting me here to participate in this panel. My name is Vladimir Belogolovsky. I have a very direct, fundamental relation to Ukraine. I was born and grew up in Odessa. I left before Ukraine actually acquired independence. And I have to say that my relation to Ukraine was for many years quite dormant. And I have never been to independent Ukraine since I left. But I decided when the war started, the active phase of the war started in 2022, I decided to reach out and somehow take part. And I reached out to Oleg. I did a quick Google search and I realized he is by far the strongest, the most prominent architect in the country. And I asked to have a conversation with him. So this is my relationship to the school, to the country. And since then, we've had a number of conversations. I wrote a couple of pieces about Ukraine. I interviewed the curators of last year's Ukrainian pavilion. Actually, they had 2 pavilions in Venice. I became an architect already here. I went to Cooper Union. I'm a curator. Well, I became an architect, but then became a curator since the financial crisis in 2008. And I actually stopped being a curator, starting with another crisis, which is called COVID-19. And now I'm becoming a curator again because it's over. And I'm actually doing now 4 exhibitions in Buenos Aires in October. I'm doing another exhibition in Singapore in November. And as far as, and this is primarily what I do, I write as well. And I curate exhibitions. And I think this would be my main contribution. How do you start the conversation? As far as my statement, first of all, I think there are 3 aspects, 3 points I would like to make. One, the first one is that Kharkiv School of Architecture is the only one, as you said, private independent school. And I think there is a responsibility to initiate a kind of coalition. So this was my idea, to start a coalition with professionals, politicians, and business people in Ukraine, and to make it in a very transparent manner. So people, the citizens of Ukraine, would know about this reconstruction. I actually don't like the word reconstruction. I would like to use the word maybe imagining a new kind of future, very bright future for Ukraine. So that would be number one. And number two would be to focus on education. I believe that whether in time of war or peace, you really have to focus on education. And in one of the statements of the school, it says that the education process at the school is based on students' ambitions. So I think that political advocacy, political activism has to be definitely a part of this ambition. And I think that's important in setting up a very open, very kind of open and creative environment for the school. So I think that's quite relevant, no matter it's the wartime or peacetime. And finally, I always ask this question, it has to be very personal. So I think it's important to ask, what can I do and not be very general. So in my case, again, I would volunteer to, well, I already said volunteer. I would contribute to organizing exhibitions. And also I would love exhibition, symposia, discussions, and keep this kind of discussion very open. You know, it's important to come up with solutions during the discussion, not to have preconceived ideas. And so this is what I would do. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Vladimir. Eve.
Well, first of all, my connection to the Kharkiv School, which is, it's recent and, but has been very meaningful to me, and a profound, actually, experience for me. It began with a desire to do something about that I could do within my own capacity as an architectural historian and as a teacher in a school of architecture. And so it was to teach a course. And I decided that I would teach a course that, using a framework that I've used before, as I've looked at other cities, other countries and cities within them in the post-socialist world that have undergone enormous transitions or undergoing enormous transitions. And this is a framework which I've called transition as condition, and that it's a permanent condition. Transition, the idea here is that transition is not moving from one known and stable condition to another one and just having that moment of instability between them, but that it's a permanent condition and that we must understand it that way. And so the course that I am teaching this semester, actually, and a couple of my students are here in the audience, which is very gratifying, is Transition as Condition. And it's a research seminar on Ukraine where we're looking at urbanism, infrastructure, and environment. Those are the themes, and we're looking historically. I'm very interested in, and as are the students, how to think about and how to actually implement in some meaningful way reconstruction. What does it mean? How does it relate to construction? How does it relate to destruction and deconstruction? And so the way that I decided to do this was by trying to understand place and to do research in place. So that's what this seminar is about. And I had early conversations with Oleg and Irina, and also another colleague who is at the Center for Urban History in Lviv, Sophia Diak, members of Roskrit, who have all been incredibly helpful, and who also have been participating in the seminar. Katrina, who is here, has been a major protagonist in that effort. So my statement, I took the brief, the prompt, quite directly and as a prompt. You know, what is the potential? What are the potential roles, responsibilities, and so on? And so I thought about that, and I thought that actually the Kharkiv School of Architecture has already determined its role and the responsibilities that it will take, that it is taking on in relationship to the recovery and reconstruction of Ukraine. And it's also set its own agenda, which Oleg, in his words, is to, quote, educate the young minds that will shape Ukraine's cities during the period of reconstruction that will follow the war. So this is a mandate and an agenda. And it seems to me, as I thought about this, that it's a mandate that is actually shaped by the experience of displacement, of being uprooted, of being unsettled, and also of needing to rebuild. And that the Kharkiv School, as it's sort of resettled in Lviv, has already begun that process of reconstruction. And it started, interestingly, with the school itself and the curriculum, focusing also, doing quite a bit of research, focusing on the specificity of place, on developing housing typologies. This is among other things that the school is doing. Also developing strategies for rebuilding not only the torn fabric, but also actually, and very importantly, the livelihoods and communities of Ukraine's destroyed cities to create with purpose a more equitable and sustainable urban environment in these cities. And I think that what I admire in this is that, also among many things, is that the school is digging deep, actually, is doing research into the conditions and history of conditions in place, and is digging deep in order to project forward and to project outward. And I think another fact of the school that I find really interesting and compelling is that it is actually drawing in the world. It's drawing in architects and planners and theorists from the United States, from Europe, to come and teach. So it's architects, planners, theorists who come to teach at the school. But increasingly, I feel that they're coming to learn, actually, and that that the school is becoming a magnet, and that we're all going there and we're all connecting with it and connecting with Ukraine because we can learn so much, and that the issues that are being faced are issues for all of us, and that the profession, the practice, the education, the pedagogy of architecture is going to be transformed and is transforming because of what is happening in Ukraine, and that it is going to and is having an enormous impact and will change what we do.
Thank you, Eva. Absolutely. Finally, if we may, Richard.
Okay. We were asked to give 150 words. I had 164. And now it's going to be slightly longer, but whatever. Anyway, my introduction to Kharkiv was in 2011. We did an urban design studio, Columbia Urban Design Studio there, with several of our faculty, and then, of course, with the School of Architecture under Oleg. It was, I think, a unique exchange. So going forward, maybe there's something to be learned from that particular moment. I mean, we did a report, a publication. I don't know if it's still around. But the process was very interesting. And the focus of the studio was a post-Soviet Kharkiv, what what would come next. It was already kind of post-Soviet. Now I think it's post, whatever. Yes. And we put together a brief. I went back through some old files and things and found a brief that was used there. It was an interesting process that students might be interested in. I mean, we had our Columbia team, and then there was a Kharkiv team, and there was a series of challenges that were to be addressed, and I'll read them in a minute. And then the Columbia students had to present their focus on these challenges, and then the Kharkiv students were the critics. I don't know what the faculty did. I think we had a beer somewhere during this. Anyway, so the challenges were, or whatever we want to call them, there were 8. The question of ecosystems as infrastructure, the question of existing urban fabric and built form focused on addition and densification, infrastructure as public transport and roads, public space to include parks, but also boulevards as parks, a variety of residential building typologies, reuse of industrial buildings, commercial and retail, including markets, malls of various scales, and there was quite a lot of peripheral development at that moment in that category. And then the question of future of institutional buildings, including schools, libraries, hospitals, government offices. So I looked at this last week, and I thought, well, you could easily kind of pick up again. I mean, here's a very clear set of priorities in terms of how to look at the future. So probably we strayed fairly far from this throughout that semester. But I think it'd be an interesting starting point. I don't know what records still exist in the school. We probably have some things, right? So those challenges are, I think they're very important for today. And now is the moment for the school to step up. I'm sure it is. And I'm very glad that to be here today and to be part of this initiative. I mean, it's not just Kharkiv, it's not just Ukraine. In my mind, it's to take a leadership role more globally. And that has to do with future of urbanism in cities everywhere where natural and human disaster have prevailed. So it's a major moment for the world. And Kharkiv was a great city, by the way. I mean, coming from New York, I didn't know much about Kharkiv, and then I mean, it's as big as San Francisco. It's bigger than Cleveland. It's bigger than, the whole flyover here, what are there, 50 universities and colleges and universities. I mean, a huge technological sector. That's where Sputnik was developed. And also a very diverse population because Russian and Ukrainian, was very mixed. And I would hope that this does not get lost in the next, the next decades. Okay, is that good? Is that?
I'll join you in a second. We have a few minutes now for the panel to pick up on particular issues internally, and then because we've all spoken far too long, of course, we'll then come to you quite quickly after that. If I may, and it's my privilege to be able to do this, is to ask a question. The word reimagining is at the front of this event, the sense that there is a process of expansive dreaming, of rethinking that might involve aesthetics, might involve issues of mythology and poetics. And I suppose I'd like to ask how does one achieve this incredible alchemy of being able to teach and inspire dreaming and reimagining under the most difficult practical problems? And I think since Irina was looking at me when I asked that question, I'm going to ask her that question. Okay, Oleg, I'll ask you it.
Yeah. I try to, yeah, first of all, it's this war, it's existential war, and it's also civilizational, like a scratch. We're living in situation of like where like a very center of which divided for the pieces, and Ukrainians choose like a particular side, and to be really followed it's quite a lot of work. And I mean, we're learning every day, because like we live in a moment of truth, and what everything what we did before it not was like that. And in terms of like a switching to like a new reality, extreme reality of truth, we're thinking all our behavior, all our values, and we re-articulated like every our missions. Yeah, and what's why we will try to avoid in maybe in next future some kind of populism, which exactly develop this situation to this like a full-scale invasion crisis. And it's also about rethinking what is colonial, what is not. And maybe it's also for us, for Ukrainians, it's like a lot of work in terms of developing our identity, which very deeply anchored to society, to nature, to geography, to our cities and our history as well.
Thank you. I suppose in the various moments of discussing this with students, many times this vitality of civil society that you spoke about, Sasha, was referred to as a sort of inspiration for the processes of richness and generosity that could happen in the most terrible circumstances. Can you say more about the way in which those bottom-up, sort of untutored processes might find their way into education?
One thing I think one thing to not forget, that everyone who is working on reconstruction are humans. There are people who are also displaced. There are people that also lost homes. There are architects, urban planners, designers who have, just like Kharkiv School of Architecture students, had to relocate. Some of them had to switch from architecture to become a soldier, a volunteer, or do something more immediately important. So one thing to remember, that a lot of these people have their own trauma, but one thing specifically for architects and grassroots reconstruction efforts is that having a skill or having an architecture or design training separates them in a way that they're able to see past the distractions that are happening to them. A lot of people who are non-architects, when they see a destruction, they cannot move past that destruction. They cannot see anything in front of them. They cannot see what can happen next. They're kind of stuck in that moment of grief and pain. Architects, designers, urban planners, I don't want to just say architects, creatives, possess the imagination to see beyond these destructions. To some degree, it is a gift that helps you to move forward, but not only you, and find in your grief action, but also helps other people around you, non-architects, to move forward by showing what could be even in the most desperate time ever. So that is something, it's just something that I want to note, and also something that is very important to understand about the students too. They're all humans that are working on really important things while they're also struggling with war. So I think an interesting thing about grassroots organizations, and as I mentioned, a lot of them are architecture, a lot of them young professionals, architect, designers, who have collaborated during war to just start helping people using their architectural visualization, imagination, their technical skills to help people to move on or be able to go to work, to be able to find home and continue contributing to economy. A lot of these collaboratives, there is also an interesting movement that was born that I've been following, is that a lot of non-architects been using architecture skills or ways of building to come up with, to help local communities, small communities, villages, to rebuild their hometowns, little villages, buildings, cultural buildings. And a lot of these professionals are young. They are in their early mid-20s. They also had to leave everything that they were doing and just kind of move and help everyone, help other people to rebuild. I think what's now also, I think is going to be interesting for the students or to consider is that these people who are not architects, they're also now possess embodied knowledge of the identity of these local communities where they're working. They are the one also working directly with hands, rebuilding homes, talking to older people, talking to people who live in these small villages where identity is not even, it's not cataloged, it's not collected. That identity doesn't live on paper. Architecture identity, building, traditional building, right? A lot of traditional architecture that is getting destroyed. A lot of that doesn't live on paper. That lives in the heads, right, of the people in these small villages, in these small towns. For example, like Donbass region has been heavily damaged and destroyed during war and continuously is. And just because it's not a very touristy location, the identity of the landscape of the architecture is not really, again, it's on the paper. It lives within the people there. So a lot of these grassroots who are working together, they are collecting that knowledge. They're transferring that knowledge in their hands, in either they are architecture or non-architecture. They are to some degree also an important, valuable resource that will be essential in rebuilding buildings, architecture, reconstruction. I guess I don't know if I'm answering that question,
No,
but
that's wonderful. Thank you. That's clear. My last question really is, I suppose it might be to Richard. One of the things that is rarely talked about within these conversations around reconstruction, recovery, whatever we should call it, I mean, is a conversation around aesthetics. Does it matter what things look like, particularly in the first stages of recovery or reconstruction? What I find really inspiring about the school is that under pressure, there is a very strong conversation about poetics, about meaning, about, dare I say, even beauty in terms of what things should be. And I wonder whether you could just reflect on that. That aesthetics is often the sort of first victim of education in response to very difficult circumstances.
Okay, that's a good one. My personal bias is that aesthetics are totally, totally integral with the money, if we want to put it in crass terms. But then the question is, what aesthetics, you know? And I think maybe, I mean, I haven't thought about this, but off the top of my head, I think probably a big, big piece of reconstruction will have to do with, of course, the human dimension, but also the physical side of it. Is it going to be innovative? Is it going to break new ground? Or are we going, you know, backwards in time? And Kharkiv had, you know, some, I mean, there was a Durzprom building, you know, it's a constructivist monument, huge, which is still an important part of the identity of the city, socially and physically. I don't know how it survived the war. But I think the other thing I would say is that there's opportunity in innovation that comes heavily from our discipline. I mean, I sort of, you know, what you said really resonates. And it has to be allowed to flourish, which I think is in a way one of the big challenges of this school. Flourish and listen to. So one of my, you know, throughout this period of the war, one of my constant concerns has been what goes back, and how will this be a global contribution. And architects, you know, and designers, we play a pretty big role in this. We can. And so I would say for the students, you know, I'm curious what they think about this. But is it just politics and then we get on with life, or are we now rebuilding something to be proud of in the next century, even, you know? So that's, yeah. I'll think more about this.
We have this, you can't see how you appear in the room. You're behind us, like a sort of, the students behind us are a lurking presence. Do any of you have any questions or comments from what you've heard being said here in New York? If you do, at any point, if you just put your hand up, then the audience will yell out to us that you want to ask a question. So at any point, you can ask a question or tell us that we're speaking rubbish, if you like. Any questions between you? I really, I mean, I can do this because I'm from London, but why was it so terrible that Lord Foster turned up in Kharkiv very soon after the invasion with a completely sort of pre-described aesthetic solution? I mean, lots of people think that's a really good idea. Why was it so bad?
I actually, I would want to commend him for doing this, because I think it's interesting when you go back to, for example, 9/11. I know that some architects made proposals the same day. On September 11, they already had sketches. And you can criticize that. But I think it's, it's a kind of activism. And it doesn't mean that that's the sketch that has to be realized, but that's the beginning of a conversation. And he was one of the first architects who made a proposal for Notre Dame de Paris when the spire burned down, and he was in Ukraine. And that's where the conversation starts. And, everybody is very suspicious of him because he has done huge grand projects all over the world. And maybe it's not going to be, very specific and very relevant, people fear. But I don't see a problem why it shouldn't be considered, and why shouldn't many others join him, and not him, but this process, this public discussion, and start making teams. Like, for example, for 9/11, a lot of architects didn't present their work as their offices. They actually made teams, and some of the teams were enormous. 30 architectural practices would put together, would team up and make a proposal. So I think it's actually great. And the word imagination actually was mentioned several times. And I think it's extremely relevant to education, to the process of education. There are a lot of educators who don't believe that imagination can actually be taught. They actually tell the students that you either have it or you don't. But I don't believe that. I think imagination could be triggered. And so I think the process could be done in a way by example. There is a lot of talk now about the importance of the site, of the brief, of the budget, and that's what determines the project. But it's not true. We have a whole culture of architectural innovation, and ideas actually very often don't relate to what's happening on the site or what's in the brief. And so I think it's important to study, all of these examples. Where do ideas come from? Where does imagination come from? And how do you, train imagination? How do you deal with that? How do you use it, in practical projects? So I think it's important to, to discuss. And if you have architects who have this, urge to show what they think, I think it's fantastic.
To add some, it's also because I'm was like a part of conversation face to face with Sir Foster, and I think it's like absolutely genius affair in terms of like a made proposal from foundation to to be dealing with whole city for foundation. First of all, like just a fact, nobody from all foundation and all supporting teams visited Kharkiv during the today. This is like one of the facts. And it is like a great marketing campaign. It's first of all, but bad side of this genius campaign, it's that it's still till now, it's counted as a busy place for some kind of expertise. And we could see in one case, like business as usual. Another one, it's completely a missing understanding what's going on in Ukraine. And this is like this war, anti-colonial war. And this is like it means that's most important to give a room for some kind of collaborative formation of expert and civic society to be like a efficient and make some kind of proposal, or even realize to build some kind of work to understand who we are and what we need, and like at some certain moments. That's why it's like it's unfortunately what is like a kind of fell down like proposals.
If I may, for me, this story, it's not about Foster. It's about Ukrainian society, and it's about local authority and how the local authority see the different actors of the process in the city. And actually, I was very happy that not all accept this. So the discussion started. And after this discussion started another very important discussion. Who made decision? Who has the power to rebuild? How to communicate? Who are the actors of the process? And this is still very important discussion for Ukraine as local authority, also the central authority see themselves and the main actors who will do it. And what is also our role to change the situation, to talk with local communities and to give them more voices in making decisions.
Could you say a little bit more about, I don't think it was explicit in your presentation, about the way the school is trying to teach participatory and co-design processes as part of its curriculum?
Yeah, it's very important part of our curriculum. First of all, it's also methodology that every project in our studio, it's real place, and our students have communication with real client. So we also have cooperation with local municipality. What is not so usual in architectural school in Ukraine. So they give us their real projects, and our students work with this. So we also have different in each courses. Actually, this participatory approach is very important, and we also teach them how to communicate, how to talk, and try to provide them with this community or actors to learn how to talk with.
I mean, I've heard you speak a lot, Oleg and Ryan, about one of the difficulties is actually the municipalities and the level of skills and awareness and understanding of contemporary processes in urban design within the municipalities. Can you just say something about the way in which your curriculum and the master's course will actually integrate with, dare I say, infiltrate those very intransigent post
Robert,
structures?
I think Anastasia wants to add something.
Could you put it up again?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Anastasia,
Hi, I would like to add to what Irina has mentioned before about the reality of the project that we have here in Kharkiv School of Architecture. Frankly speaking, this was one of the main points why I made a decision to stay in Ukraine and keep studying architecture here in Kharkiv School of Architecture, is because I think that it's crucial to understand the Ukrainian context to make design propositions here. Because speaking from the experience I've got on the Building Back Better workshop this winter in Warsaw, when we were collaborating with students from Ireland and Sweden, I understood how is it different to live in Ukraine and, for example, in Ireland or Sweden, because we have completely different context, completely different regulations, etc. And for me, it's very important to contribute to the rebuilding of the destroyed cities or destroyed districts. And I think that the only one way how it can be done properly is by this deep understanding and by the researchers of the history of this place, or by talking to people who lived there or are going to live there, and to understand this local context. Thank you.
Thank you. Will you yell out again if it happens? Would you just say something about, because I think it's very much, it's a sort of scaling up of that issue of engagement that is happening in the small one-to-one projects. Would you just say something about the ambitions of the school to really influence the identity of local government, of planning processes, of some of those things which are very, very intransigent?
It's my piece of cake. I could say, yeah, emphasize once more. We really need to find our land, and land, it's also inhabitants and people, and reality is quite difficult, full of difficulties, and sometimes brutal. But we only like a way to engage, to establish our new architectural proposal in such kind of collaboration. And this means that school try to make like a much broader field of activity, of our activity. It's also communities and municipalities. What's why we are also doing a lot of things towards capacity building of civic servants, which we work with and some kind of program orientated to this kind of auditorium, because it's our future collaborators and our clients, and this is like it's common work to create a new agenda and briefs for future project. That's why it's impossible insulated on only architectural thinking I don't know, process inside of discipline. And we like we in terms of enormous emancipation of civic society, we feel like role of architects as just like a part of the team. That's why, it's like a broader thinking. Each our, I don't know, architectural work have to be placed in quite a wider context.
Just wanted to say that part of the course is to seek placements within municipalities within Ukraine, but to also invite students from Ukraine to seek placements within other cities as part of the course. So I think that interchange will be very important. I think it's time now to throw it open to you. There are roving microphones that are behind you. It would be very useful if you could just say who you are and what your interest is. So we'll start here, if you may, and then we'll move here, and then we'll move there. Here, there, there.
Hi, I'm Yuri Inchishin. I'm a Fulbright specialist and scholar teaching art conservation and historic preservation in Ukraine over the past number of years, and have been involved in numerous activities since the war began to preserve Ukraine's cultural history. So I want to pick up on a phrase that Sasha had mentioned, specifically the term preserving. And I have a question for the students. And I prefer that each student answer this question. And it's a very simple question. I'd like you to name a building from your village, town, or city that has a special meaning for you and why that is important.
Well, I think you've spoken, Sasha. So I think we will ask Daria, would you be able to answer that question? Did you hear it?
Yeah, I'm hearing you. I'm from Kharkiv, and I guess my building that you mentioned is Kharkiv School of Architecture. Because it's on the old city town, and when I see it first time, I like it, and when I went inside, I was fascinated, and yeah, it was. Yeah, I don't know what to say more.
You don't have to all be nice to the school. Maria, do you have a building?
Yes, if we are talking about my hometown, Chernihiv, I think the most important for me is like my grandmother house. It's like old Soviet parent block building, and it's like really nice complex because it's great, like really cozy courtyard. So yeah, I think it's like my favorite building because it gives me like really good memories. Yeah, it's like it's first what came to my mind.
Thank you. If just one other comment, apologies, but we're going to run out of time. One last comment, one last building from any of the rest of the students.
I can say I remember not the building, the complex of building. This is the in Kharkiv, and I guess because I really like the story of this complex, and I first come there until the war, so I have so strange feelings about all this. Yeah, and I'm in love with this complex.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You put your hand up, but I can't. I have to admit, I don't know what your name is because I can't read Ukrainian.
Matvey, yeah. Do we have time for?
Yes, please.
I've been thinking about building in my city, Uzhhorod. Uzhhorod has been under Austria and Czechoslovakia for some time, and there's a huge historical city part of the city that has many of the modernistic buildings that were built in under Czechoslovakia. And I've chosen maybe an administrative city administration built at that time is very beautiful, and it needs to be preserved to me just to show how different the Ukraine's culture is and how different it was through the time, through the history. Yeah, I think that's all.
Thank you. And thank you for such a wonderful question. Sasha, do you have a couple of sentences to add?
I don't know if I will give a specific building, but I think something that I have learned from doing research, working with these grassroots initiatives is that I think the answer to this question for many people is going to be probably different than it was before the invasion, because buildings, things, when they're next to you and they have no meaning or interest to you, it's just there, right? This notebook, I won't care for it, like it's right next to me, but if it disappears, it has a big meaning to me. So I think a lot of what I'm trying to say, a lot of things, because of war, a lot of things that were next to you that you never seen the beauty or interest in them, are much more precious. So I think that answer is quite difficult. This question is really difficult to answer because it's a wonderful question, but it is, I can imagine that that question will be, answer will be very different because of the circumstances of war. So I think a lot of people will even choose things that are, you know, not quite notable, right? Not some amazing architecture pieces, but a little kiosk next to the home where I used to live, where I used to get bread, got destroyed, you know, and there is certain love and history lies to that of every day that has no aesthetical, you know, it's not a cultural center, it's not a big architectural masterpiece, it's just a kiosk, but it is an architecture and a space that has a meaning. So it is a really wonderful question, and I think there could be a lot of very interesting answers to that. And I'm sure sometimes our mind goes to pick something notable and interesting, but in reality, I think it could be quite simple as well.
Okay, the panel was great. The students are great. Yay, Kharkiv School of Architecture. I'm concerned about, yes, I'm Ted Liebman. I'm from Perkins Eastman, large-scale architect, global architects, and work with UN Habitat and a lot on sustainability worldwide. I fear you students must remember, first, go back to your own city. Brain drain is a problem all over the world in all cities and has to stop. Remember the old buildings and their details and repair them with 3D printing and other things, but their memory is important. Forget cars in parking. No garages anymore because no cars in the future. And my grandmother told me that on Krещатик in Kiev, she was taken in a horse and carriage and on wooden sidewalks to protect her from her little dress when she was a little girl. So those memories and that culture must be retained in every way possible. And I think that's it.
I think that was what we call a rhetorical question.
Hi, I have a question for the students. My name is Dara Chomyak. I'm the CEO of Razum. So I was struck when all of you introduced yourselves on the screen, how you come from different parts of Ukraine. And I'm curious how you bring that experience into the studio, and what have you learned from a student from a different city or town since you've been studying at the Kharkiv School of Architecture? What have you learned that you didn't know before by hearing something from a student from a different part of Ukraine?
Anastasia, where are you from again?
I'm from Odessa.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can try to answer the question. I think that it's the most visible that we are from different cities when we have our lessons in humanitarian block and we were discussing something and we're mentioning examples of something, and it really shows how different our background is, because living in Odessa and living, for example, in Kharkiv is two different worlds, I would say. And it's about everything, like relation to the water, architecture, the periods when the city were built. And I think that in all of these discussions, we're sharing this experience, and it's the most valuable thing we have.
Thank you, as always. We've got two more questions, and then we'll go back to the panel for some very precise statements, I think, about
what we're going to do to be useful now to the school. And I'd like you just to think about that. There's a whole load of people here who are wanting to help. Can you give us some advice as to how we might do that? A shopping list, if you like. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Cole Wagner, and I'm a research specialist at Robert A.M. Stern Architects. I was wondering if the people, both the students and the leaders of the school, could speak to the role that you guys have taken in terms of integrating your buildings with the historic fabric and with the historic stylings, it be however you'd like to define that term, of Ukrainian history and Ukrainian urban construction and Ukrainian architecture in general.
I'm actually gonna pass this one to Irina, because you are the heritage expert. I haven't had the experience yet of getting in the classroom outside of the workshop with the students, but I think that your question sort of relates back to this question that kicked off the audience session that I've been thinking about still since. If I had a favorite building or object within Ukraine or Lviv, and while everyone else was answering, I thought, I can't think of a single favorite building in Lviv. And yet I love that city and I love walking around Lviv. And one of the things that it is I like so many of the buildings, and a lot of them are just everyday buildings. And a lot of them are also from 100 years ago and have never been restored or touched since then. So it creates a lot of atmosphere. And then, so I was realizing that I love walking around the city, looking at these buildings, that someday I hope that we see a type of urbanism that is sensitive to creating those types of environments again, where we can walk around and enjoy what we're creating today 100 years from now, or where people after us will find that same type of pleasure. And then I also realized that it wasn't a building at all that was my favorite thing to the answer to this earlier question that I'm tying back to. It was a space. It was an area of the city that I often go to, because of course, being a foreigner there, I have friends and colleagues, but I can sometimes feel alone, right? So what's the best thing about being in a city is that you can be alone with other people. And there's a particular avenue in Lviv that is just fantastic to walk up and down, whether it's winter or summer, if the weather is, if it's not pouring rain, and that's Svobody Avenue. And it's a place where it leads from one square to another. And at the top of it, you have the opera. And in the evenings, you will always find people there enjoying that space, doing all kinds of different activities that an urban researcher would be able to, just observe and put into some type of chronology. But so I don't know if that very well answers your question, but I think that we can hope to have this connection with our students and the city, and thinking about creating places that we want to be in, and parts of the city that we could create that we personally enjoy being in. That's all.
Thank you.
The question about Ukrainian heritage is always very, very complicated question, because Ukraine is located on the borderland, and Ukraine is located on the crossroad of states, ideologies, cultures. So, and this war uncovered very different layers of Ukrainian heritage. And they are appealing heritage, they are uncomfortable heritage, they are abandoned heritage. And actually, this war raised a question to us. Are we ready to accept our past and our very different past as our heritage? Are we ready to, after the war, to ask very difficult question? Should we rebuild, reconstruct, or conservate? What we should do with Soviet? Is it our heritage? Where we are in this past? So it's very, very complicated question, but this question can lead us to both direction, to open and democratic society and to very exclusive society. And I believe that we will be enough strong to discuss very uncomfortable and tough issue of our past to have a prosperity future.
Thank you. Thanks. In a way, I think Irina started answering the question I was going to pose, but coming from the responses of the students, my name is Anthony Richter. I'm with the Open Society Foundations. Two of the favorite buildings were a Soviet Pятиэтажка, like a Soviet 5-story residence block, and another was a Habsburg building. And I'm wondering to maybe take what Irina was beginning to express, how the school manages the political, practical, aesthetic debates around notions of decommunization and decoloniality. I think you started, perhaps you've already answered it, but I just giving it some of the names of policies or laws or political trends.
Yeah, actually, it was the topic of our lecture, our last lecture before my leaving to New York, because we talked about in our course on heritage, we talked about this difficult heritage, and I always tell them that architects is very a political profession. And we actually try to together to comprehend what does it mean colonial past and what is different between, for example, Ukrainian colonial past and Uzbekistan colonial past. What to do with our hybridity of the colonial past. So this is, I can give a lecture about it, better stop me. But actually, it's a very important discussion, and what we teach our students to be critical, to look for sources, to ask questions, to challenge everything, and to be critical. Because only the society which are critical to itself has future.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, my name is Anna Katz. I'm doing a PhD in history and theory of architecture here in New York at New York University. I work specifically on Soviet architecture, broadly construed. My question is for Igor and for Ryan, but also addressed to the panelists in an expansive sense. I'm frankly quite shocked by the optimism that you seem to hold dear about the possibility, about architecture as a kind of positive practice and one that would contribute in a structurally good way to reconstruction in Ukraine. I'm wondering if you can elaborate upon the kind of the ways in which you may or may not be hedging against the tool of the role of architecture as a tool of exploitation, of labor exploitation, of economic exploitation, in the pedagogical structure of the School of Architecture. And I wonder also about the ways in which questions of political economy and processes of the design of political policy are part of the conversations that you have with your students. Thank you.
Oleg, I think
My turn again. Okay.
you have the disability of being an architect.
Yeah. It's architecture could as well doesn't take I don't know, something with resources. It could be like a minimized. It's today understanding of architecture quite much wider. That's why we try to provide in our school, for example, and also when you feel and work with an enormous number urgent needs, you finally feel quite like understanding your mission, and this is quite easily to use as less as a possible resources for dealing with quite a serious problem. And to me, we got experience during the first weeks of invasion doing shelters. We using like, I don't know, some kind of reuse materials and elements to create like a basic comfort for a lot of people. And I think, yeah, it's like we always have to be remember about like money issues, our traces of all our action for the nature and for society, community. But it's too many things possible with very like small things, which could be really changed quality of lives.
Thank you. I do think we're Alec is looking at me in a very hostile way now. What I'd like to do is to return to this very, very quick, and we'd love you in Lviv to say this as well. It's really just a very simple, having listened to the debate, having seen the presentations about the school, what is it that you think, each of you thinks we should be really considering tomorrow, not in a week's time or 3 weeks' time, that would be of support to the school, a practical, immediate action, a verb, not a noun. And I wanted to start this debate by asking Irina the question which I asked her last night. And it's an important question because I think the school has received enormous support and enthusiasm, but not always in the right way. I want to ask Irina, what is it you don't want from us?
First of all, I wanted to say that we are very, very grateful for any support we got, and it's really very important for us. When full-scale invasion started, actually the war showed us that school is part of international architectural community. And during these 2 years, we got so many friends and so many cooperation with different universities. We speak the same language. We teach the same curriculum. We really are the only institution, university in Ukraine who teach updated methodology and approaches. But we really need financial support to do this, to still survive in new city, to settle. And another thing what is very important, that we can offer our young people something to stay in Ukraine. And this is very, very important, because war, unfortunately, will last for a long time. And we need these young people educated to work with built environment now during the war?
I don't know how else to paraphrase what had previously been said, but in order for Ukraine to contribute to a conversation of reconstruction in the world, and currently in the world that we live in, I think conversation on reconstruction, ways of rebuilding our environments, either they're been affected by natural disasters or wars or crisis, is really important right now. And Ukraine is currently contributing to that conversation and leading that conversation, including through all of these grassroots initiatives, together with the important work that Harkov School of Architecture is doing. But in order to do that work, it's the in the environment that is in war and where economic instability is present, the best way to contribute is to support financially, and also just listen, also ask questions, show interest, and just like many other people, a lot of people can contribute. I'm fortunate, even myself, to work with a lot of non-Ukrainians who've been contributing to important conversations on Ukraine. Even, my co-curator for exhibition, Ashley Bigham, she, I'm just saying she's not Ukrainian, but she is doing amazing things. So financially and your skills, your interest, and contributed to the conversation of reconstruction in order to share these methods, tools, techniques beyond Ukraine. And thank you so much for having me again.
Very quiet, friends. Now's your chance to put us straight. I think the school is being very, very entrepreneurial and collaborating with international universities, and I would just encourage the school to continue and accelerate those measures. There are still new programs being created at universities to support Ukraine, and we have one at MIT that is intended to bring faculty over to the United States to be at MIT for a period of time. And so those exchanges, I think, are the most critical. That engagement keeps Ukraine in people's minds, keeps students reminded that the war is continuing and that Ukraine is in need, and it's also increasing capacity. And capacity building and the construction of civil society is something that's been a theme this evening, and that's a major, major contribution that the school can and will continue to make.
Well, also, thank you for inviting me here. And I would like to say that it seems that the school is doing all right. And I would love it to, for it to continue doing its work. One thing that should be avoided, I think, is, I would say, consensus. That's what you should avoid for sure. I think many different ideas should be discussed, debated, and the strongest ideas will always win. And this should be hybrid ideas, and the most relevant, the most unique and beautiful will prevail. And of course, there is a phrase that cannons and rockets obviously have to stop flying before muses will speak. But it seems like they are actually speaking at the same time. So I'm actually very impressed that there is a conversation, there is a debate going on during the war. And I can only wish that the war stops as soon as, you know, as soon as we can imagine. And this reconstruction, you use the word reconstruction. I would use the word reimagining. The future of Ukraine has to be definitely focused on the future, because we're not reconstructing the past. And that should be, again, the focus, and as many professionals or non-professionals as possible should be involved. And I would welcome, you know, international collaboration as well, not just local, but local has to take the lead, that's for sure. Thank you.
I would say, actually, having more events like this would be really good, to let people know about the school, to be introduced to the school, to have conversations like this, to have debates, to bring people in. And I think that's one of the most important things that can and should be done. It's very effective, I think. I think that we've all learned a great deal from this. And it's important that there are more of these events. So you have to travel quite a lot.
Yeah, I agree with that totally. And I think if in that the school can capture a notion of what the future of our profession is going to be all about. So it's an extremely important moment. I don't see that it's a moment for pessimism. It's just not useful, you know. And to my mind, with all of the suffering, including of the students, there's enormous opportunity here to be able to, you know, to evolve in a new world, basically, that'll last a lifetime and will make, you know, huge contribution to our discipline. So that's.
Although it's not your turn. Ryan, what do you need?
I mean, I think I've been pretty clear about that in the last part of my presentation, but I mean, the reason that we're here is it's all about the students. We wouldn't be here in this room if it wasn't for the desire and the need to support students. And the number one way that we can do that, and what we need to do that, is financial support, first of all. But it's also teaching support, and the kind of support that like Razum has offered us today by giving us this grant and this platform to be here, and of course all of the other partners that are involved. So we need friends, and when we need friends with money as well. So there's no reason to beat around the bush about that. And what else?
That sums it up. I'm going to turn now to what I'm thinking of as the Lviv 6 on the screen behind us. I've never been to an American fundraising event, but what apparently happens is you lock people in the room, and then you don't let them out until they pledge something. So you've got people locked in the room here, and more people are going to be locked in the room later tonight. What do you want? What would help you most tomorrow in terms of your education in the wonderful school in Lviv?
I think that the two most important things were already mentioned: the financial support and that the people will speak about Ukraine more, because we all understand that the world is getting tired of what's happening in Ukraine now, but it's still happening. And it's very important for all Ukrainians to people abroad keep talking about what's going on here. And speaking on students' behalf, it's amazing how much people with beautiful ideas we've got in Kharkiv School of Architecture, but some of them really struggling with paying student tuition, and scholarships will be really helpful for letting students in Hesha keep studying, and also to let people who would like to apply to Kharkiv School of Architecture understand that it's financially possible for them.
Thank you. Anybody else from the six? Go ahead.
I think Anastasia has said like the main points. I would just like to add that hope just personally keeps me going and wanting to study more, and discussions like this, they really bring hope that people with a lot of experience can share it with us, and just I think as students can hope that we can break through this. Maybe sometimes it feels like a perpetual state of danger, and we can just hold on to our dreams and just maybe have a better future. Yes.
Thank you. One last comment. Miroslava, you haven't said anything. Would you like to say something?
Yeah, sorry. I skipped my chance to say about my favorite building, but yeah, I'm just gonna probably agree with my colleagues, with Anastasia and Matvey. I was thinking about this opportunity about sharing people what is actually going on in Ukraine, and I think my best dialogue was when we were again on this workshop in Warsaw, what was like recently, when we were like collaborating with the students from Sweden and Irish University, and we were talking about my hometown Dnipro. We were making projects for the city, and it was really important for me to share my experience, to show my thoughts, to share all my emotion that is actually true, like not that information that they only read on the internet, what's actually can be also false, but actually can be also truth. But I would say that face-to-face talking to people is much more important. And yeah, I would just say that this kind of workshops that could be organized in future for us, for other universities, I think it's a really good experience for both sides. And I would just say that I really appreciate the workshop that I was involved in. And I would just ask that make more workshops or just things like this. And it's going to be really helpful. Yeah.
That's exactly what I wanted you to say. Thank you so much. I mean, I think the last word should definitely be with Oleg, because without him, none of us would be here having this conversation at all. So Oleg, thank you all for being here, but the last word must be with you. Thank you so much. The Kharkiv 6.
Yeah. Thank you so much, all of you, for being with us today for such firm and deep conversation, which we have today. I want to emphasize that this war in Ukrainian future, it's very big part of history of all liberal democratic civilization, and process of Ukrainian recovery, Ukrainian transformation is part of very big civilizational project. In school, it's like one of the break in this quite a serious game about or war about values, and architecture as a discipline which responsible for like a civilizational building. It's so important. what's why. And yeah, I want to also add big thanks of Ukrainian army for possibility to be here and running the school.